the working group meeting today. I did for some reason go to the wrong room, so we will get started here. So I call to order the November 20th, 2025 meeting of the Electricity as Vehicle Fuel Working Group, and it looks like we have a quorum. So we have 3 speakers today, and before we get started, we'll ask for approval of the October 27th meeting minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review our minutes, and do we have any changes or concerns? All right, hearing none. Is there a motion to approve the previous meeting minutes?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. All right, the motion prevails and the minutes are approved. So welcome again. It's good to see you all. And I'm happy to be here. We have 3 speakers today, or 3 presentations. And I'll warn you ahead of time that in total teacher mode, we're going to have a discussion at the end. I won't be asking for a lot of interaction, but I'm warning you that we are going to have it at the next meeting, okay? So at the end of today's meeting, we're going to set that up because our time together is winding down, and we want to make sure that not only do we do a good job as to what is our task, but also we hear from all of you, and that goes beyond the working group. So we just want to make sure people are prepared for the December meeting in terms of conversation, and I will set that up at the last as the last agenda item. But we have 3 presentations today. I think you'll find them all to be interesting and useful. Our very first is Scott Cummings, who's Assistant Commissioner at the Virginia Department of Motor Vehicles, and he's going to present, I assume, online. He didn't make the trek, on Virginia's mileage choice program. So with that, I'll hand it over to Assistant Commissioner Cummings. Mr. Cummings?
Good morning. How's everyone doing today?
We are good. Let's make sure we can hear you. Again, as a reminder, for those of you that are online, and I know we have several, if you speak, could you identify yourself? And that goes for anybody in the room as well. So thank you. Commissioner? Assistant Commissioner?
Thank you. Is my presentation up over there? Or do I need to be sharing that?
Assistant Commissioner, if you can share your screen and present that way, that'd be great.
Great. Pull it right up.
All right, we see it.
All right. So Virginia's been using taxes on motor fuels to fund transportation for over 100 years. And while that has been reduced, our reliance on that has been reduced with taxes on retail sales and recordations, home recordations, insurance premiums. About 25% of our budget still relies on fuels taxes. And in 2018, Virginia received notice of how shaky a reliance on fuels taxes is to fund transportation improvements in the Commonwealth. 2018 was the first year that revenue from fuels taxes fell compared to the prior year, but vehicle miles traveled in the state increased. They'd both fallen in times of recession, but typically when vehicle miles traveled increased, then the taxes from the fuel used to travel those miles also increased. And so the fact that that didn't happen meant that we finally saw that event that was looming on the horizon, that fuel efficiency was going to start impacting transportation revenues. So in response, Virginia's legislature required the Virginia Secretary of Transportation to lead a working group to study how sustainable our transportation financing structure was in the future. So the working group confirmed that the trend of rising vehicle miles traveled and declining fuels tax revenue was here to stay. And it agreed that part of the change was due to electric and hybrid vehicles, but it found that a larger impact was coming just from fuel efficiency vehicles increasing in just standard gas-powered vehicles. They cited some reports that said not only were gas-powered vehicles becoming more efficient, but the rate of improvement in fuel efficiency was accelerating and was only going to get faster in the future. This chart is from their
Sir?
report. Yes.
Your slides are not advancing, and
Uh-oh.
if you could go into presentation mode, I think it might be easier for us to see.
All right. Thought it was. Let me.
Okay, that's better.
Did that one?
Yep.
Can you see my chart now?
Yep, can you go into full presentation mode so we don't see what's coming? It just makes the slides bigger.
Uh-oh. Sorry, we don't use Zoom in Virginia, and I'm a little struggling.
That's okay, we're not in a rush. And if you can't, it's okay. Yeah, everybody should have the presentation in their packet. So maybe just keep going and we'll just have people follow along. So everybody in the room at least, and those on Zoom, you also have the presentation. So it looks like, why don't you just start there? Because I think you were just about to say this chart. So go ahead, sir.
All right, so this chart shows their findings. They were predicting in these tall blue lines how much revenue was going to be coming in from fuels taxes, and the small little red box, the 25.6, is the impact in funding loss from electric vehicles. But the much larger red box, about 10 times the impact, is coming from just fuel-efficient vehicles overall. While electric vehicles were expected to grow by 2030, really the impact was going to come from standard gas-burning vehicles. And so the transportation working group found that just targeting a solution on EVs or hybrids wasn't going to address the coming decrease in transportation funding. A sustainable program really needed to be a bridge of near-term solutions as well as long-term solutions. Near-term solutions like increasing the gas tax, indexing it to inflation so purchasing power wouldn't get eroded, creating a highway use fee targeting the efficient vehicles and the fuels taxes they're no longer paying from that efficiency. Those were the near-term solutions. Long-term, the working group suggested just getting off of gas tax altogether and going to a mileage-based user fee funding approach. That was many years away, so they recommended as a midterm solution that we gain experience from a mileage-based user fee approach by allowing that highway use fee to be paid on a per mile basis. These measures would stop the current decline while we were able to implement a long-term solution of a completely different funding approach for transportation. Those recommendations from the working group came out in December, and the Virginia's General Assembly came to town the following month, and they adopted many of the working group's recommendations. They raised the gas tax by 5 cents a year for 2 years, and then they indexed it to inflation. Every July 1st, we adjust the gas tax for the prior calendar year's CPI change. They also had established the highway use fee, which is a formula that looks at what the average vehicle pays in gas taxes and compares that to fuel efficiency vehicles. Fuel efficient vehicles are identified as all those that are 25 miles per gallon and above. And then they created 2 ways to pay the highway use fee, either in full at time of vehicle's registration or on a per mile basis from zero on all the way up to the amount that they would have paid if they had just paid the highway use fee at the time of registration. So this chart shows Virginia's gas tax from the very beginning in 1923 and the various increases that have been made over the years. You can see the long periods where the rate remained flat after an increase, and that during those time periods, the purchasing power was being eroded by inflation. Beginning in 2020, you can see the impact of the two 5-cent increases as well as the steady increase from the inflation adjustment that we make every year. In terms of revenue, you can see the impact again, how the indexing to inflation has stopped that purchasing power erosion, and the fuels tax itself is a much more sustainable funding source. The highway use fee, as I said, is a formula. In Virginia, the legislation identified fuel efficient vehicles as 25 miles per gallon and above. It also set the average number of vehicles traveled by a motorist in the Commonwealth at 11,600. So every year the fuels tax rate is applied to that formula and determines what the average vehicle pays. Every fuel efficient vehicle is then compared to that amount and assessed 85% of the difference. And that amount is the highway use fee. So on a 25 mile per gallon vehicle, all the way at the bottom of the scale, it's $6.86 in the current fiscal year. And an EV, which pays no gas tax at pump, pays a highway use fee of $131.88. And you can see in the graph, the amount paid in the gas tax or through the highway use fee varies for those fuel efficient vehicles. And so while the highway use fee varies for the fuel efficiency of a vehicle, it always assumes 11,600 miles is traveled. The only way for a motorist to have recognition if they drive less is to participate in our mileage choice program, which is our mileage-based user fee program. We have contracted with Amovis as our commercial account manager to run the program. It's a turnkey system. Customers enroll with Amovis. Amovis interfaces with our system, and we return the vehicle's fuel economy and their highway use fee that Amovis needs to charge. When the enrollment process is completed, Amovis interfaces with our system again to turn on an indicator to show that the customer is participating in mileage choice. That way, when the customer subsequently renews their registration, we don't charge them the highway use fee since they're paying that on a per mile basis with Amovis. We were able to partner with the Eastern Transportation Coalition to use a FHWA grant. We have two grants. One we use to run an ad campaign and get some messaging out when the program was first kicking off. We've also been able to use another round of funding from the Surface Transportation System Funding Alternatives Grant to offset some of the cost of the program. The program went live on July 1st, 2022. The highway use fee took effect 2 years before that. Our legislature gave DMV 2 years to get the program set up and running. So we began collecting miles on August 1st, since that was the first start of a new registration period for motorists. They began to get invoices in September. They pay through a prepaid wallet, much like a toll transponder system. Every month they receive an invoice, and the cost of their miles is deducted from that prepaid account, and then it's auto renewed when it gets to certain levels. To participate, customers can choose between two methods. They can participate through their in-vehicle telematics system, or they can get a plug-in device that has interfaces with Emovis and allows them to record the miles from the vehicle. We don't require GPS to be enabled. Some customers like that, and there are some additional features in the smartphone app that Emovis requires that allow some Find My Car or Trip feature additions that customers find entertaining, but it is not required to participate in the program. We don't need to know the location of the miles in order to charge the fee. So some customers enjoy the privacy that approach allows. Virginia does not discount for out-of-state miles. All miles traveled and recorded by the device or the telematics system are assessed the fee. Like I said, there is a smartphone app required. Customers download that as part of their enrollment process when they're initially setting up. And then there's some odometer capture photos that are required that the customers need to upload to Emovis, and that allows Emovis to do some true ups and ensure that the miles are being recorded properly. This chart shows the breadth of the fuel economy of participating vehicles. We have about 7 million registered vehicles all across the Commonwealth. About 2 million are identified as fuel efficient vehicles, getting 25 miles per gallon or above. We have about 23 to 25,000 participants, so roughly 1% of those eligible to participate in the program choose. About half of them are just traditional gas-powered vehicles. We have a lot of participants who don't save a whole lot of money but enjoy having some cutting-edge technology or being able to pay their highway use fee on a per mile or on a monthly basis instead of all up front at their time of registration. Program adoption has been popular among those who have enrolled, and they continue to renew their participation. And we see about 80% renewing year over year. And on average, participants record about 6.5 to 7.5 million miles every month and pay roughly $100,000 in fees. And since the start of the program, we've collected over $2 million from our Mileage Choice program for over 200 million miles driven. And we continue to operate the dual approach. We charge the highway use fee at time of registration on all those fuel efficient vehicles. And then we run the Mileage Choice program to gain more insight on how a mileage-based approach could work in the future. And that is my presentation.
Thank you. I have a few questions, but I'll open it up. Does anybody in the room have questions or anybody online? Representative Elkins?
Thank you. Great presentation. One question I have is, of the people who are participating in the program, how many of them are using the ODB2 plugin, and how many are choosing to participate through direct telemetry?
About 20% are participating through the in-car telematics, and the remaining 80% have plug-in devices.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the presentation. That was very helpful. My name is Bentley Graves. I'm with the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce. Just a couple questions. On slide 7 here, it shows the HUF revenue, and you're looking at, it looks like $96 million estimated for FY26. I'm just curious, is that before, I guess, administrative costs? I mean, is that what you're clearing and putting into your accounts, or is that before you've kind of taken out the cost of administrating the program?
Commissioner? Assistant Commissioner, sorry.
So that was the gross number from the highway use fee. The highway use fee is very low cost to collect. We're leveraging our registration renewal process. So really, it's just credit card fees are the only collection costs. We don't have to build any new infrastructure for that. Mileage Choice is part of the operating costs. Right now, it's about a $1 million net loss overall. We bring in about $1 million a year from charging the mileage-based user fee to the participating customers, and the program costs roughly $2 million to operate. We have been using the STSFA, so the Federal Surface Transportation System Funding Alternatives grant to close that gap and make the program cost neutral.
So I'm sorry, you said, so the mileage-based user fee portion brings in $1 million, but costs $2 million to administer? Did I hear that
Correct.
right?
That's
Okay.
right.
Can I ask one more question, Madam Chair?
Of course.
On slide 3, that chart is very helpful, kind of showing where you expect the kind of the drop off in revenue to come. And I guess in that, I believe at the top it says that's kind of an expectation by 2030. Is that expected? Is that kind of painting the picture of what you expect to see in 2030? Is that kind of like cumulative between now and 2030? Is the first question, I guess.
That was the report was put together in 2018, and they were looking cumulative between then and 2030. Or I think they were looking at by 2030. Excuse me, they were looking at by 2030. That was the impact on an annual basis.
Okay, all right. So in 2030, that's kind of where they expected those numbers to land. So then I guess the question is, and so the recommendation from the group to the legislature was to move ahead with this HUF and a mileage-based user fee to start to kind of get at that. So if you're collecting right now 96 million, you think in 26, but are expecting almost a 200 and what is that?
34.
$60 million between
Oh, yeah,
$260
between the
million
two.
loss. I mean, how do you think you're going to be in that neighborhood by the time you get to 2030, 5 years from now, or?
It's going to be pretty close. I saw some estimates from our Department of Taxation on the highway use fee, and they had it over 160 million by 2032. So whether the assumptions are all panning out that were made in 2018 about
Sure.
the rate of adoption and everything, but between the increasing of the fuels tax and the imposition of the highway use fee, we have closed the gap, and we're not seeing the funding decrease year over year that we were anticipating had we not done anything.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for that.
Sure. Anybody else in the room? We have one question online. All right, I'll go online to Carolyn Berninger. Carolyn?
Thank you. Good morning. Thanks for the presentation. It was really, really interesting. I'm just kind of curious about kind of both the 25 mile per gallon threshold for sort of higher efficiency vehicles, as well as the average fuel efficiency assumptions you're using to calculate what the average gas car driver pays in gas tax. Just thinking ahead, something I've been thinking about is, obviously those numbers are going to change over time if we're assuming as the vehicle stock rolls over, the average car on the road gets more efficient. So does the program handle that in any way? Is there some sort of reassessment at some regular rate, or do you anticipate needing to kind of go back and update those assumptions over time?
Assistant Commissioner?
The enabling legislation does not have a provision for a routine review like that. That is something that we would be monitoring and needing to come back and suggest at a future date.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. So your revenue does not address at all vehicles that are driving through Virginia that are not registered in Virginia?
The highway use fee is only assessed on Virginia registered vehicles. So a vehicle passing through Virginia would pay the fuels tax at the pump if they stopped to fill up. But if a vehicle filled up in Pennsylvania and drove all the way through to North Carolina, we would not see any revenue from that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I should have clarified. I meant for electric vehicles.
Correct. We do not have a tax on electricity as a fuel source. So if they stopped at a charging station in Virginia, they would not pay any revenue into the transportation funding system.
Okay. Just one follow-up. I'm sure maybe this is something I need to call you and talk to you about, but I'm curious about the process and the back and forth to get to this point. I realize you only have maybe a minute to respond, but was it highly contentious? Was it collaborative? Were you there? Can you just give us a short assessment? And then we have another question in the room about the process to agree on these strategies.
I think that the legislature was comfortable with the working group. It was a broad range of stakeholders who came together and identified those potential alternatives. There was also if you will, a sweet spot in Virginia's politics. One party was in control of all three branches of our government, so that may have smoothed the road that perhaps wouldn't have been the case if you know, a majority was not present across all three branches. Since then, Virginia's legislature and governor's office has been a mixed party, but nobody has come back and tried to adjust what was passed in 2020.
Thank you. We have a question in the room, sir.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. John Houselot, Minnesota Trucking Association. Again, just looking at the solutions you came up to just because of the size of trucks and their fuel economy, the program really doesn't affect commercial vehicles at this time. I guess that's my question. But a second piece of it is it looks like the other funding mechanisms that you did put in place, just want to clarify they were across gas and diesel. So the increases were regardless of type of vehicle. So clarifying those two things, please.
Yes, the fuels tax increase is, you know, on gas and diesel. So any vehicle filling up at the pump would pay those. The highway use fee itself on the fuel efficient vehicle side, that is capped at 10,000 pounds and less. So that avoided needing to get into how IFTA would work with assessing the highway use fee on heavy trucks. So heavy trucks are exempted from that highway use fee piece.
All right, any other questions?
Madam Chair, just.
Representative
one-
Elkins?
One additional one. So for the vehicles that are participating via in the program using direct telematics, have the auto manufacturers resisted allowing their vehicles to participate in the program? What?
I don't believe there's been resistance. I think that we have seen in the 3.5 years that we've been running the program, at least one or two vehicle types was, you know, software compatibility issues and vehicle owners that were participating through telematics had to switch to a plug-in device because of some changes with the interoperability of the Emovis solution and the telematics system. I don't think we've seen any issues with participation. I think Emovis uses a third party that gets that information and passes it over. But there have been some need to continue to keep things compatible, and that has presented some challenges.
And just if
Steve, you got a
no
follow-up?
one else has any questions, just to make a couple of observations here. You know, the mileage-based user fee bill that I have would establish essentially the same regimen that these guys have already been using for several years. There are, you know, 3 states that are already doing mileage-based user fees: Oregon, Utah, Virginia is the latest. All of those states use the same driver and vehicle services, DVS software that we use, the FAST DSVS program that we use for MnDrive. All 3 of the other states have used Emovis as their administrative vendor. Utah, and so the integration between Emovis and MnDrive has already been done 3 times. The fiscal note for my earlier versions of my bill, DVS has estimated that they could implement this 2 months for about $200,000 with the funding coming out of their modernization fund. So a suggestion I might have, since I know DVS has already looked into this, is it might be good to get a presentation from DVS about discussing the work that they've done to analyze what the implementation of a program like this would look like. And the MnDOT has also been very actively involved in this as well. But just the point here being that I've got a bill on the books. I probably will have to do some rewriting to reflect the changes pretty much going to look like this. So it's a proven model. 3 other states have implemented it using exactly the same software that we would be using, and it's easy to do.
Yeah, thanks, Representative Elkins. Anybody else who wants to comment, I welcome that. Doesn't have to be a question. My comments are that I know we can learn from other states, so that's been really helpful. I'm appreciative of slide 3 that Bentley brought up, also noting that as you look at that decrease in revenue, I think it's really important for us to remember that the decrease in revenue we're going to see is not just from electric vehicles. It is from higher efficiency vehicles. And so I can really appreciate the work that Virginia did to address both of those concerns. And I encourage us, that was going to be part of my closing today, but I just want to encourage us to remember this isn't just about electric vehicle loss of revenue. It's really addressing, I mean, even in trucks, frankly, we're going to see an increase in efficiency across the board as technology improves. And I think it's really important for us to take note of that. We still have the same roads. Maintenance, as we know, is becoming more and more expensive. And as we have less and less funding, even if we don't add to our mileage, we still have roads out there that we're going to be in need of funding for, even cracked seals or overlays. So this is a really important issue, and I'm grateful that Virginia took that into consideration as they developed their program. Any other comments? Again, this is all going to be part of what we consider as we move forward. So, Assistant Commissioner, thank you for your time. Thank you for putting together a great presentation, and understand that you may be hearing from some of us as we move forward. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Oh, Representative
Go
Elkins
ahead.
has something.
I could arrange for someone from Utah to present to us as well.
That'd be great. Yeah, we have another meeting coming up December 1st, Danny? December 1st, and we're putting that agenda together. I'm good. I guess this is as good a time as any. Was anybody else at the Alliance meeting a week and a half ago? I know obviously Margaret was there, Emily was there, a few of us. And we heard from the man, Michael from Utah, who talked about real current technology wherein vehicles are charging by driving over embedded chargers in the pavement. And I've asked him to present just briefly on December 1st, because what it did for me leaving that meeting was changed my whole thought process on, oh, it's not just going to be about pulling up to a charger and putting a plug in your car. There are new technologies, also this technology of swapping out batteries as a truck that's electric powered goes from one station to another. People aren't going to be able to take the time to charge for however time it is. And so thinking about the technology that's in development, but maybe hasn't even been developed. So how we think about charging and the reality of charging, I think you'll all benefit from that presentation, as I know I did at the Alliance meeting. So thanks, Margaret, for that. But to your point, I think it was Steve or Representative Elkins who asked, or no, it wasn't. It was Carolyn online who asked about, planning ahead for changes. And of course, things are going to change. But I feel really strongly that it's our duty and our assignment to at least get started. So we can only know what we can know, but we'll try to broaden the perspective a little bit on December 1st. So yes, Representative Elkins, if you want to get somebody from Utah, I think hearing from as many states as reasonable, I won't say possible, but reasonable, I think will be helpful as we think forward to putting together some recommendations. All right, so next we're going to have Jeremy Neek, who is here from Department of Revenue, and he's going to talk about some of the considerations for implementation. So we have his presentation in our packet as well, and he will talk a little bit about just some of the considerations, and I appreciate your time. So thank you, Jeremy. When you're ready, just go ahead.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Jeremy Neek, Minnesota Department of Revenue. I'm a supervisor in the petroleum tax unit. Been around for quite some time with the department. Obviously, like everybody else, electricity is new for us as well, so it's a new task we're taking on and learning lots of things as time goes on. Just a quick background, the transportation omnibus bill was signed into law on June 14th, 2025. It establishes electricity as a vehicle fuel tax under Minnesota Statute 296A-075. And it creates a 5 cent per kilowatt hour of electricity delivered at a public charging station. And the tax does not go into effect till July 1st, 2027. So we have time to get this implemented.
Jeremy,
Yes.
could you move a little closer to the mic? I worry about people who
Is that
are
better?
online.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. What is taxed? Electricity delivered to electric vehicles or EVs at public charging stations with a capacity of 50 kilowatt or more according to Minnesota Statute 296A-075 subdivision 2. Who's going to pay the tax? Public charging station operators that sell electricity as vehicle fuel at a public charging station pay the tax. Public charging station operators are defined in Minnesota Statute 296A-01 subdivision 43B as any person who owns or operates a public charging station in the state. And we also define a public charging station in the same statute, subdivision 43A, as a facility at which a person conducts for-profit business using electric vehicle supply equipment for the delivery of electricity sold as a vehicle fuel to electric vehicle and charges the customer for the electricity delivered. So that's those key points
Mhm.
when we do our administration.
So Jeremy, could you
Yes.
just pause for a minute?
Mhm.
Members, if you remember last month or at our last meeting, there was a little bit of conversation around what is a public charging station. And so I appreciate this, and this is our definition as we move forward. So a charging station that's in the public and available isn't necessarily a public charging station as we consider it for this working group and for this legislation. And so thanks for bringing this. I think it's key to note here, it's just one that is conducted by or provided by a for-profit business and which is charging the customer for the electric charge. So thank you. I think that's definitely adding clarity, and I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Thank you, Madam Chair. What is exempt from the excise tax? Charging at public or at private residences. Public charging stations with a charging capacity of less than 50 kilowatts. Public charging stations that provide free public charging.
To my point.
And legacy chargers that are both installed before October 1st, 2023, and without metering systems are exempt until January 1st, 2032. And all those exemptions are listed in Minnesota Statute 296A-075 subdivision 5. Public charging station operators licenses. On or after July 1st, 2027, a person may not act as a public charging station operator without having been licensed by the Minnesota Department of Revenue as a public charging station op. I have the site there. Each license period is for 1 year ending June 30th. According to Minnesota Statute 296A-051. So these are free licenses for the public charging station operators. So there's not a charge, but you do have to renew annually. Applying and renewing for a license, the licenses are free. The first application for a license must be completed on a paper form. We have to make sure everybody gets registered in our Gentex system. And we found that paper forms work the best. And it included a comprehensive list of all public charging stations owned and operated by the applicant. And we're going to keep a database, and we're going to work with Weights and Measures and other state agencies to make sure we're sharing data. So we have a comprehensive list available for all state agencies. We're projecting to open our licensing on January 1st, 2027. And then public charging station operators must notify revenue before they begin operating a new public charging station. So if they're licensed already, they add a location, they need to notify us so we can add it to the database. And then once you're licensed, they must be renewed annually, and that's done through our services system. So it's all online. We're still looking if we're going to have an option to add your additional chargers there, or if we're to have another means for updating us when a new charger is put into operation. Some revenue feedback on the current legislation. The federal purchase exemption, we need a standard exemption for the federal government. We need to ensure compliance with the U.S. Constitution. Government. We recommend adding the following new clause, number 4, to the list of exemptions in our statute. And that's electricity sold as a vehicle fuel to the United States government to be used exclusively in performing its governmental functions and activities, or to any cost plus fixed fee contractor employed by the United States government on any national defense project. We also have some additional feedback. Department of Revenue is neutral on all the following suggestions, and we are not planning to carry them in a bill, but we just want to bring them to light. One is filing frequency. Another is legacy chargers, and the third is sales tax. The first one is filing frequency. Current filing frequency is monthly in the law. We believe industry may desire a less frequent filing period. Reducing filing frequencies will have an impact on fiscal year 2028. Just because how the payments would come in. But, and then filing frequencies vary widely among the states with an EV tax. Some are monthly, some are quarterly, and others are semi-annually. The current monthly requirement is, the current monthly requirement and less frequent requirements are administrable by us. We just have to, if there's a desire to change, have a statute change, and we could administer that. Next is the legacy chargers. Just want to again bring to light what our position is on this. A legacy charger must satisfy 2 criteria. The first is be in operation before October 1st, 2023. And then the second criteria must meet to become a legacy charger is it does not use electric vehicle supply equipment capable of measuring electricity delivered as a vehicle fuel to an electric vehicle. So if it doesn't meet both those criteria, we would not consider a legacy charger. And because this tax only applies to chargers with capacities of 50 kilowatts or more, so level 3 chargers, and most of these chargers are capable of measuring electricity, we do not expect a legacy charger exemption to exempt many public charging stations from the tax. This may come as a surprise to some stakeholders.
Can I interrupt you?
Sure.
So have you gotten any feedback on this, on it, that it's inappropriate, or that it will,
We have
present an undue hardship on anybody?
Not yet.
Okay.
I think at our first meeting, someone brought a comment about legacy chargers, and they might have been thinking that just because they were in operation before October 1st of 23, they were exempt.
So they have to meet both criteria?
Both criteria, yeah.
Okay. Anybody else have questions about the chargers since I interrupted already? Anybody online? Okay, sorry, keep going.
Okay. The next portion is sales and use tax. Minnesota sales and use tax currently applies to electricity as vehicle fuel because electricity as vehicle fuel is not exempt from sales and use tax under Minnesota statute 296A12 and 297. So 296A would be the petroleum tax law. 297 is sales and use tax exemption law. So subdivisions 19 and 20. Currently, Kentucky is the only other state that charges both sales and use tax and excise tax on electricity as a vehicle fuel. To compare, 12 states solely use excise tax on electricity as a vehicle fuel. I had some questions about sales and use tax exemptions, if the law doesn't change to exempt electricity, if it's subject to excise tax from sales and use tax. There's two possibilities. There is a claim for refund. Sales tax on electricity is paid by the public charging station operator at the time of purchase. Then the public charging station operator would submit a claim to the Department of Revenue for the refund of sales tax paid. And then if there's an exemption by law, so if we would change the law to exempt sales tax from electricity, it could be an upfront exemption where the utility company would just not charge sales and use tax on the monthly bill to the charging station operator. That's kind of my end of my slides, but I know when Matthew Bishop gave his presentation, he noted that Iowa was licensing every charging station with a separate license. That is not our intent in Minnesota. We're to have operator licenses that they can operate many chargers under that one license.
Okay,
That's our intent. To make a little bit easier administration, that's why we want the comprehensive list as well, so we know where the charging stations are located at. But we're trying to, have less taxpayers, but the potential for paying more in tax by each taxpayer would be there.
so an operator would be like Quick Trip, even though I'm getting feedback, an operator would be like Quick Trip, even though they have many
Correct.
franchisees?
Correct. So it's pretty similar to what we do today with the motor fuel excise tax. So Quick Trip has one license, operates their 2,000 plus stores in Minnesota under that one
okay.
license. Yep. So that's basically what we're going to do. The same thought process on that. So
And I easily assume that reduces costs administratively and just hassle by individual Quick Trip stores and others.
Yes.
Okay, I saw Eric Rudine had a question.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Eric Rudine with the Department of Transportation. If there is no sales and use tax exemption, those revenues would go into the state general fund, correct? And not the highway user fund?
Yes, I believe that is correct.
Okay. And then the recommendation for an exemption for the federal government,
Yes.
I know that's, we're early, we can't probably publicly say until we get governor's office approval, but is that under consideration for a Department of Revenue technical bill at this time?
I'm not sure.
I see someone else
Someone
coming
with
up.
me that tell me all some of these more political questions.
Mhm.
Joanna Byers with our.
Joanna, if you could introduce yourself. Thanks.
Madam Chair, members, my name is Joanna Bears. I'm the Legislative Director at the Department of Revenue. And Madam Chair, Eric, the question, it is already exempt under federal law. We're just trying to make it more clear within the statute itself.
So, Eric, are you done? So I have a question. Who else is exempt from sales and use tax? Like just give me an idea of who this might apply to.
For motor fuel in general?
Yeah.
So farmers, who else? I'm trying to think who else would be exempt. If fuel is put in an off-road vehicle, so an unlicensed
Oh, yeah,
vehicle.
like snowmobiles and
So,
stuff.
nope, snowmobiles still have to pay
Oh.
because we portion some of the money to DNR. But,
Okay.
so like landscapers that have if you're in a business using vehicle or motor fuel as an off-road purpose, you can apply for a refund. Sometimes the refunds are subject to sales and use tax if you get the motor fuel excise tax back, but, so there is quite a bit of things that,
Yeah.
and then we do also have dyed diesel fuel that helps eliminate the refund process because it's already untaxed for like skid loaders, just anything without a license plate on it.
Mhm. Thanks for pointing that out. Now I understand. So thank you. Question?
Amanda Dewar with the Minnesota Automobile Dealers Association. Just wanted more of a comment than question, but thank you very much. I think earlier on I had asked questions about the implementation of this, so this provides a lot of clarity, but also some questions and something I hadn't necessarily thought of before, but I think it is going to have to be a conversation of this group is, it seems like a double taxation now with, if it's subject both to the sales tax and this new per kilowatt hour tax for the operators. That seems concerning. That's something we might have to look into how to address.
Mhm. Yeah, and I'm thinking, I was going to bring this up, like for current exemptions, I mean, it is unreasonable. Again, if anybody wants to reflect on what I'm about to say, I would love that. But it seems like farmers getting gas at a gas station is much more common than them having their own private gas tank. So a farmer could charge any electric vehicle and be exempt from that tax by setting up their own charger at home in a much easier fashion than getting their own private gas tank, right? Like, so I would think that this exemption would impact many less people than the gasoline exemption. Is that a reasonable statement?
Madam Chair,
Go
I
ahead.
think it is because I just don't think people are going to drive equipment to a charging station
Right.
to charge in town where they could charge at home or where the
Right.
business is. So that's why we kind of thought to scale back on the exemptions, except for the federal government exemption, because we just don't anticipate many exemptions or many non-licensed equipment being charged at a public charging station.
Yeah,
Like-
I agree. I would expect it'd be much cheaper to set up. I mean, we have one at our house. We don't even have an EV, and it was very inexpensive to create that charging station, whereas there's no way I'm ever going to install my own private gas tank. Even many farmers I know don't have that. So I think that I'm just saying out loud why I think that makes sense. Anybody else in the room want to reflect on that? Bentley?
Oh, I'm sorry, not on that piece. I had a different.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Bentley Graves from the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce. So, early on, we had a presentation from the Department of Commerce trying to kind of help us get our arms around the universe of these chargers out there. And, I think that they put the number at somewhere around just shy of 3,000 ports at 1,000 locations statewide. But later on in that conversation, somebody from Revenue, maybe it was you, was
It
on
might
the
have
line
been, yeah.
and said that actually, the department has that pegged about 89.
And it's higher than that.
Okay.
Maybe about 500, but the problem is we don't know if they're all charge or cost someone to fill at those EV stations. That's a big unknown right now for us.
So, so is that 500? That is 500 that meet the 50.
Correct.
That threshold. That
Yes.
500 meet that threshold.
Yes.
Okay. And so it's unclear yet though how many of those 500 then would otherwise meet the threshold for date and all that.
Right. We
Um,
do not know.
Okay, so that's helpful. So it's no longer 89, it's more like a universe of about 500.
Think about 500 charging stations. Yeah, I found a new website that had a lot better
Okay.
data.
Fair enough.
So
Good, good.
it's very hard to find things on EVs, and then there's a lot of conflicting websites out there currently. So you get a lot of garbage information. So I did find, actually Iowa pointed to me to this new website that's more accurate.
Oh, great. Okay. So we're all learning together.
Yeah, yes.
So then and maybe you don't know the answer to this question, but then my other question is, so if we have a universe of, we think 500 stations that will theoretically or could be subject to the tax, I am forgetting what the revenue note was that came along with this bill when it passed as far as what we expected. Do those two things you think kind of tie off? I mean, were the projections that went into the development of that revenue note then kind of, do they align with what we know now about what is out there and eligible to be taxed?
There is going to be some changes because the revenue note said that they anticipated 60% of all chargers were going to be legacy chargers.
Okay.
And now with the new position we have and how we read the law, I think that's going to be considerably less. So it probably changed that projection.
Okay, so we would expect then the expected revenues to potentially go up then?
Go up, correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, and Bentley, I infer we'll be getting some updated data too as we move closer to our deadline. Senator Howe has a question online. Senator?
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. And I guess my question, I'm not going to, I don't know if it's a question or just a comment. I think the more consistent we can be with other fuels, so we're consistent with all of our stances of exemptions and whatever, whichever fuel it is, I don't think we should be making exemptions for which fuel. We should just make exemptions for the use of it. But if it's a fuel being used for this category, it should be taxed the same way across the board, no matter what the source of fuel is. I mean, that would be my comment on whether we got exemptions or whether we're getting tax, sales tax and excise tax. We should treat all fuels the same, depending upon what they're used for. Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you, Senator. And I would just offer back, I agree with you. I think the reality is we are going to see less requests for exempt or for refunds just based on the nature by which people fuel up. So.
And that was our anticipation
Yeah.
as well.
Excellent. Okay, John?
Madam Chair, thank you. John Thorson with LiUNA, Minnesota, North Dakota. Jeremy, in your census of finding chargers, how many have you found that are under the 50 kilowatt threshold?
I'd have to go back and look at that.
Or even proportionally?
I think 30% or so 60% are not level 3. So I think level 3 make up about 30% of the total chargers currently in Minnesota.
Thank you.
That's helpful. All right, any other questions? Jeremy, thank you so much. This has been very helpful. And as we move forward with recommendations, I'm certain we're going to rely on your agency to give us more data. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, excellent. Is our Quick Trip guy online? Oh, he's here. Welcome. All right, the next presenter we have is from Quick Trip, and he's in the room. So we have Adam Schwartz, who's going to provide industry perspective on public charging tax implementation. I'm a little disappointed you did not bring us any treats.
I thought about it this morning.
And you call yourself a Quick Trip guy. I'm just teasing, of course. Please don't record that in the minutes. But I'm a Wisconsin gal, so what do you expect from me, right? All right. So as Adam gets ready, everybody has his presentation. It's the one with the bright red cover. So thank you, Adam. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you mentioned, I'm Adam Schwartz. Been with Quick Trip for about 10 years. I'm our EV charging program manager. So been managing kind of what ultimately our quick charge program is looking like, and been developing that program to figure out where we belong in the EV charging space and ultimately providing fuel, which is what we do best for our guests that drive whatever vehicle that you want to see. So really my presentation is kind of giving a high level of where we're at as Quick Trip goes, but then ultimately some recommendations that we've experienced being an operator of a charging station, and kind of what we should or encouraging to look through just through our lens of as an operator. So first off, again, just wanted to highlight Quick Charge for those that don't know. We implemented this just over a year and a week as our first year anniversary of this station. Our first site, we did a canopy, kind of went all out, able to provide DC fast charging to both CCS cars and NECS cars. So we don't care what kind of a charger or Tesla or whatever you use. We want to be able to provide a charging experience for everybody, especially with our clean, safe, staffed 24/7 locations, with amenities that a lot of EV owners want to see. We also accept that probably only about 20% of use with people charging at home. We see that probably only about 20% of these at the time will be used for fast charging. So again, we're trying to figure out if you go from gas to electric, we're going to provide 100% of the gas you put in your car, but now only 20% of the electric. So again, trying to figure out what's this fine line of being able to offer this amenity that's very high cost today. But again, working through all of these fun nuances in the wild, wild west of EV charging. Here's a little roadmap of what our sites look like. Right now, we were just awarded 11 more awards as part of the NEVI funding in Wisconsin. So that brings our Wisconsin total up to 36 sites. Minnesota, we have 9 locations, and then Iowa, we're looking at 10. So right around that 55 location mark. The extra 11 in Wisconsin are not dictated on that map. But we'll have hopefully 3 or 4 more sites in Wisconsin to open up, and actually hoping to break ground on our first Minnesota site here in December if the weather allows us to. So exciting to be able to bring Quick Charge into the state of Minnesota here very soon.
Adam, can I interrupt you?
Yeah.
So you mentioned before that this was high cost for you, and I am reflecting on that. Like, does Quick Trip currently get any benefit for doing this other than you bring people into your stores to buy the snacks and food and all the things? Like, what is your motivation right now for doing this? I know you're in Wisconsin, so you can talk about that as well.
Yeah, so right now our key driver, it's the NEVI funding. So we've been the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure funds that have been divided out to each of the states. And so we've applied for those funds. We've received awards in many of the 3 states. So that's brought up to 80% of the costs covered by those funds for us, which really was the catalyst to enable us to move forward in our EV charging venture. But if you were to foot the bill 100%, it would be a challenge to actually go and make that business case for just installing chargers. You're looking at $750,000 to $1 million per site that we would install our DC fast chargers at. So that's part of the just economics, as EV utilization is still low in the states that we operate in, trying to figure out what the right pace is to build charging stations and how many year over year, understanding that EVs are here to stay. We still want to be able to provide fuel to our guests that come inside of our stores and offer that ultimately a little bit more as an amenity for our guests is what electricity becomes versus a motor vehicle fuel. But we see this transition into, it's just another fuel that we provide. If you can make a penny on a kilowatt hour, does that make enough margin to justify the business case long term? And really, my role right now is how do we make sure that EV charging is a business case for the next 25 years and build it sustainably as far as Quick Trip goes.
So maybe an unprepared question, but I'm just going to ask it. Do you make money on the charging as it is right now?
I'll say you make a little bit. But
On the electricity, that's the only thing I'm asking about.
correct, yes.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. And I don't want you to give away any trade secrets or anything like that,
No.
but just, there's got to be a motivation for you to,
I'll comment
do
on
that.
a little is still a little
okay.
as far as
I
capital investment goes.
think there's a follow-up question.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I think it's pretty
Introduce
ob-
yourself.
Yeah, John Houselot, Minnesota Trucking. So again, these are all just passenger cars. There's no commercial charging in your plan right now, correct?
So commercial trucks could utilize our chargers.
Any of these that are either current or the coming soon? Got
Yeah.
it. Thank you.
I'll say, will they be able to bring their 18-wheeler and conveniently place them to the chargers? That'll be the dependent thing, but our chargers themselves can charge commercial trucks. So we have a fleet actually in Wisconsin that reached out to us, and they have 2 Kenworth E680s that they're actually looking to do we're looking to actually start into that commercial side of things with them and see, hey, their office is about 20 miles on their day-to-day fleet or their day-to-day route. Our store is right on that route. So if they can stop for 20 or 30 minutes at our store over lunch, it sounds like they'll be able to get another 1 or 2 routes going back. It's a dairy hauler. So they'll actually be able to use our stores and our chargers to actually be able to extend their route versus going out of their way to charge at their, I think it's an 80 kilowatt charger that they have at their depot, about 20 miles away from our store. That's off route. So as a use case, so.
Thanks, Adam. Actually, I think your presentation is really helpful because you're thinking ahead from a business perspective, of course, and we should be thinking ahead from business perspective too, of like, why is this a good business model, but why is it good for encouraging commercial vehicles to become electric? Why is it good for EV drivers, all that? So I appreciate your time and letting us interrupt you.
My pleasure, anytime. Let me just get back, make sure if there's anything else on quick charge I wanted to cover. No, I think that's all that I wanted to cover in quick charge. So right now, what we see, and again, our experiences Wisconsin today. So we applied so about 2 years ago, Wisconsin actually had to change their state law to be able to, for us to charge by the kilowatt hour, to be exemption as a utility operator, or instead of being a utility company, we had to Wisconsin had to pass a bill to actually enable us to charge by the kilowatt hour. Within that bill is where we also included the 3 cents excise tax that Wisconsin implemented. And so we actually made our first remittance in July. They do Wisconsin's biannually. So we were able to actually remit that for our first 4 sites that we installed over the last year in July. And our tax team was like, this is easy, which is what everybody wants to see. And again, the fact that DOR was right before me, I think is very fitting. And I think Jeremy and I should probably have a conversation at some point here as you guys figure out between now and 2027 what that looks like. But ultimately, we've had a really good experience in Wisconsin. And again, the kind of my first bullet point here is we really just want to parallel mirror the structure that we see in the petroleum side of things. Procedurally, if we can have one form that's maybe just an extra form that makes sense for this stuff, I mean, it's less paperwork for them, less paperwork for us. And for us, we don't want that 1%, 2% of charge sessions comparatively to liquid fueling. We want that 1 or 2% not to be as burdensome as the 98. So right now, based on a lot of different details, we're seeing that it's more burdensome to actually remit this excise taxes and sales tax and everything like that for charging stations than it is the 16,000 dispensers that we have across all of our sites, right? Or liquid fuel dispensers. So that's kind of my first point here is encouraging this. Again, let's not overthink for the short term. Again, I think we should plan for that 5, 10, 20-year mark, but at least in the short term, what's this 5-year as EV charging is still trying to figure out where it's at? What are these things that we can do in the short term? And again, that structure is one of the first things. Going into the sales tax exemption, again, this is a partial quick trip issue. Frankly, for us, we just we'll remit the tax like we do in standard procedures, right? For us, that sales tax exemption sets a little bit of a precedent to where is the consumer going to come back to us and say, hey, on our receipt, we have a sales tax, we have an excise tax, and that EV owner is also paying their annual registration fee for in-state EV folks. So those in-state folks, are they actually getting triple taxed as far as some of these things go? I drive a Tesla Model Y personally. I do live in the state of Wisconsin, but just highlighting, again, trying to figure out this fine line for that sales tax exemption, because for us, again, we get that little bit of a benefit on our utility bill, but ultimately we get to pass that savings directly onto that guest and whoever's using that charging station. So, again, happy to have more conversation on that and provide feedback. And then again, it's really that consumer transparency is the easier we can provide, again, that receipt to the guest that doesn't have 25 line items on it. I think it's better for the consumer as well. So, and then last but not least for us, and I know the law is already passed, but ultimately promoting a level playing field across all public chargers for selling electricity as a transportation fuel. So our position is we're only installing DC fast chargers. So our chargers are about a minimum of 150 kilowatts per charger. And so we will always have to pay this excise tax. For that level 2 charger, that's 40 kilowatts. That would also be public, that maybe is in a parking lot across the street. They potentially will always be 5 cents cheaper than us across the street, right? And so, all right, our chargers are more expensive. Our chargers, we have to charge a little bit more already because they're more expensive. Does that level 2 charger then that's in a public library, parking lot, are we negatively impacted as a business because that excise tax is not across all chargers? And then my one comment too on that is that the state of Minnesota, with 60% of the chargers being level 2 chargers and probably publicly oriented, again, that potential for revenue is pretty big because the way that kilowatt hours are, it's all about time, right? Charging is all about time. So my 75 kilowatt hours, if I charge at a level 2 charger, just takes 8 hours. I'm going to consume the same 75 kilowatt hours at a DC fast charger, but just in 20 or 30 minutes, right? So as far as your consumption in that commodity goes, again, I would imagine that that parked in the ramp with my EV in the state of Minnesota, you would want out-of-state folks potentially to pay that 5 cents per excise tax in the parking ramp out there. But again, this is where it's less of a Quick Trip issue, but just me making comments as far as making sure that there's a competitive playing field and ultimately the consumer, enabling consumer choice to charge where they want to charge. Because if we had a Quick Trip charger and that's 55 cents and it's free here, well, I'm going to charge for 8 hours here. And what's my need to go to Quick Trip or any other operator anymore? So those are the long-term effects that we want to make sure that we're setting ourselves up for continued business case and making sure that we're building a sustainable business plan as we develop these things. And again, for me, it's kind of small pennies as far as the economics of it go, but making sure that the consumer perspective is understood and that ultimately that consumer is, well, I'm going to stop at the Quick Trip for 20 minutes because I'm going to stop there anyway. I'm going to plug in a charge to get me home to my level 2 charger at home, which is free or very minimal kilowatt hours from the utility company, recognizing that, again, 70 to 80% of charging will happen at home in the next 5 or 10 years. And I think that's where utility companies are going to get the benefit for that. And so for us, if we can make sure that public charging is a level playing field, again, I think that builds a better consumer confidence and a better guest experience too, because I'm not just going to put a charger randomly in a parking lot and neglect it, right? So again, if we have more ownership across all charging stations, I think that's only better for the EV community as well as the industry and fueling industry as a whole. So. And then last but not least, I just grabbed our return for Wisconsin, just at a high level, very clear and obvious. Everything in Wisconsin is by address. So each one of our stores has a operator's license, similar to liquid fueling. And basically you dictate, are these level 1, 2, or 3? You put in your kilowatt hours for each of those stations. For me, I run I click 2 buttons, runs the report by location. I send it to our accounting team. They submit it, and it's call it 3 steps, and we're submitting our tax, or remitting that tax. So again, simplicity is best, especially in the short term. And so again, as we build recommendations, it's one of my biggest pushes right now is that's the encouraging that simplicity. And then again, weights and measures also plays a role into that. Because then they get that visibility as well. So we've worked with both agencies in the state of Wisconsin to dictate, all right, is a kilowatt hour through everything dispensed through that charger, and when are we starting to test and do all of those processes. Are we ready for that today? I don't think anyone is to actually be testing the meters on EV chargers yet. And the technology is not quite there. But again, I think that's a 5-year, 10-year thing that we're going to have to start recognizing, and we're preparing for it, but really trying to make sure that we're setting ourselves up for that success for the sustainable future as far as our business goes. Any questions?
Do you have any level 2 chargers at a Quick Trip?
Not at this time. No, I mean, for us, our business case is 15, 20 minutes, you're in, out, and you're gone. Unless obviously you're a over the haul trucker that's staying in their parking lot overnight. But again, those are the spaces that we offer showers and other amenities for those truckers.
And they're not
but-
mostly electric either.
Right. And
Yeah.
so level 2 charging just doesn't fit our business case as far as those go.
Can any EV driver give me an idea to charge fully on a level 2 versus a level 3? What's the time differential?
So right now we're seeing, so fully, you're looking at a DC fast charger about 45 minutes for 0 to 100. Now most EV owners, 95% only charge to 80%, because to go from 0 to 80, it takes longer, just as long to go from 80 to.
Okay, so like 45-minute typical charge.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right now, our dwell time at our sites, just for perspective, we're seeing about 15 to 20 minutes.
okay.
So again, our chargers are charging people fast, get them on their way, and move along. So again, like the level 2 charger in the ramp, for example, well, I know I'm gonna be here for 2 hours. Makes sense for me to charge there. I'm gonna do it anyway, but I paid $2, I think, for that, and $2 will get me back to La Crosse, which, I mean, from a business case standpoint, somebody's subsidizing that electricity in some capacity as far as the taxpayer goes. And I don't know who, but for me as an EV owner, it's great, right? Like I paid $2 to get up here.
Yeah,
Is that right, wrong, and different? I don't know, but
but you bring up a good point. I mean, I just realized that even level 2 chargers can charge money. It's just that because they're level 2, they're not going to have to include the kilowatt hour tax.
correct.
But you very well could charge for a long time and not pay any extra tax on it. Okay, it's good for us to remember some of that stuff because I don't think I'm the only non-EV driver. I might be, I don't know. All right, Anjali has a question.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And thank you for the presentation. My name is Anjali Baines. I'm an advocate with Fresh Energy, and we work a lot at the Public Utilities Commission. So I do want to actually point out that unlike gasoline, charging level 2 and charging at a fast charging rate is really different in terms of the wear and tear on the grid. So it is much more expensive for electric grid and electric utility to provide the fast power for DC fast chargers. So I actually just disagree with the notion that it should be the same for level 2 versus DC fast charging. We actually do want people to charge at home with level 2 and lower rates of power because it's actually better for electric grid customers. It's better for the electric grid for that lower power. And DC fast charging is causing more basic grid upgrades to be able to provide that really fast power outlet. So there should be a difference. And the fact that level 2 isn't getting additional charging tax is not necessarily an issue when it comes to that, because it actually recognizes that we want customers to be charging level 2 because it's better for the grid and better for electricity customers in the long run to have that lower power and ability to shift load in a way that can actually optimize the use of electric grid for everyone, regardless of if they're an EV driver or not. So I just want to clarify that.
Thanks, that's helpful. Eric, did you?
Can I rebuttal on that just for a second?
Oh, certainly.
So my only comment on that is ultimately we want both sets of chargers to start at 5 cents, right? That's my basic premise of a level 2 charger could be lower cost for sure and everything like that. But as far as the excise tax go in this conversation, we want both to start at 5 cents as far as level 2 or DC fast, which then does not impact your or the operator's economics as far as that goes. So as far as the state goes, we just want that 5 cents to be across the board. We both start here. What you do from there, you maybe offer at 6 cents and we have to offer at 45. But that's ultimately where we stand on that. So.
Understood. I heard both of you. Anjali, you want to say something?
Yes, and I actually agreed on Fresh Energy just actually doesn't support a public charging tax as, Senator and Johnson Stewart right now, because we do think we're in the market building phase. And to an earlier question about wanting to treat electricity as the same as petroleum, eventually that is where we want to go. But in this earlier market stage, we actually think that these sort of additional taxes are good to consider, but because they're not going to be bringing in sort of sufficient revenues to really make up for the gas tax they're losing. The presentation I had last week that's up on the website showed the overall amount expected from public charging tax revenue and over the next 5 years, and it's about 0.23% of the overall revenue for roadway funding. So we just don't think we think the impact of a public charging tax on public charging operators at this moment is going to be outsized to the actual revenue it brings into roadway funding. So we would support pushing out the public charging tax and having it be triggered when EVs are more prevalent and when public charging stations themselves, I recognize Quick Trip might not want to say that it is hard to turn a profit on charging public chargers, but we have heard from other charging companies that right now it's still hard to turn a profit on public chargers, but we need to be able to incentivize the build out of the public charging network to get more people to feel comfortable buying EVs. So we're in a chicken and egg situation. So we really just want to keep that in mind, that to the extent possible, policies like this can help build the burgeoning market, and then it can also potentially hamper it if it's done kind of too early in the market adoption curve. Thank you.
Yeah, Anjali, thank you. And at the end of this meeting, I'm going to encourage people to start recording those kinds of things. So I appreciate you said it out loud, and it's in my brain now, but I also want you to make sure you record that somehow for me. All right, I saw some other questions. Eric.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Eric Radine with the Department of Transportation. Not a question, just wanted to thank Quick Trip for your partnership on the NEVI program. We've made 26 NEVI awards in Minnesota, and 9 of those are Quick Trip, which is about a third. That's the most of any single entity. I think the next closest would be Circle K with 4 locations. So we've worked through some challenges, I think, as we've made those awards and figured things out for this new program, but just wanted to get that on the record. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Amanda, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. Amanda Dewar with the Minnesota Auto Dealers Association. I just kind of wanted to expound and thank you for one of your points, emphasizing simplicity. As I've talked about previously, many dealerships have charging stations on site. A lot of times it's required in the franchise agreements. And so unlike a Quick Trip, we're not, your typical weights and measures, that'll be new to us, the inspection, filing these paperwork, to remit the tax. It's going to be new for us. And I'm sure other retailers who aren't typically in that space. So again, I would echo, making this as simple as possible for the operators is a good thing. And I'll save it to the end since you queued it up a little bit, Madam Chair, but I agree with a lot what was said with Anjali, and just as range anxiety right now is one of the major barriers to EV adoption. I struggle with the unlevel playing field as well in terms of deploying more charging stations out there and worry just at the impact this has. I'll leave it at that for now.
Thanks, Amanda. I know I have other questions in the room, but I have Representative Murphy online. Representative Murphy, would you like to ask your question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Tom Murphy. Appreciate the presentation. Very good. It's great to hear from businesses and what's working and how it works. My question has to do with, we want this to be a good business decision. So you said that 80% of your cost comes from the NEVI funding. Have you done any estimates on what you'd need for funding before you break even? So it's 80% is what you received, and is it on all of them, I guess? But have you given any thought to what break even needs to be in terms of funding before it's even worthy to look at putting in a charger as a business?
Adam?
Yeah, so right now, I'll have my cop out of we're too early to tell. I mean, we're a year into our first sites. Again, when it's respect to Minnesota, again, we're unknown. And so, I mean, for us, we really need to see that data, see that utilization. For example, some of our sites aren't even on Google Maps or Apple Maps yet. So even directing customers to our sites We really want to get to a point here to when can we compare apples to apples as far as we see fueling in general, to start making and determining, hey, did NEVI serve its purpose? Was it the catalyst so that we can go make that business decision in 5 years when NEVI funding is no longer? That year 6 is really what we want to get to be able to say, hey, yep, this makes sense for Quick Trip. It makes sense for our customers, and we can move forward with. I don't think we'll ever see chargers at all 900 and what we opened our 913th store today in Fargo. But will all 913 stores get chargers? Probably not, because it probably doesn't make sense with the dynamic of EV. But is it 10%? Is it 15%? What threshold do we have to learn and ultimately get a few years of data in here to really understand? And that's where the importance of the grant funding today. It's not necessarily, yes, it's a subsidization, but is that catalyst for businesses to really get into this space, start understanding that EV consumer, and then ultimately reduce that range anxiety that everybody wants to benefit. And again, if we can lower emissions simultaneously, then it's probably a win for everybody, right? So that would be my comment on there.
Representative Murphy, do you have a follow-up?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, thank you, Adam. I appreciate that. I realize it's hard to tell. I appreciate that you're somewhat of a pilot then with this funding to see how it's going to work. The sheer number of chargers that we need, if we had expectations of completing our 2040, I think is really massive. I know just in one town that I have in my area, just looking at the number of gas station pumps on an intersection, and if it were mostly EVs, that investment would be huge. And so we're really anxious to find out, in a couple of years where you think it's going. And, the 80% was a pretty good jump start. And so it'd be interesting to see where you think that break even needs to be. So thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, so Adam, just to confirm, you said that the NEVI grants pay for about 80% of the cost?
Yeah, so when we applied, you could ask for up to 80% of the cost is how those grants are situated. So again, competitively, some areas we might have asked for less, and in some areas we asked for the 80%. So I think our threshold was 60 to 80% based on the geographic location and the competitiveness of those grants. So
Thank you. Eric Radine, who else applies for these NEVI grants? Who else is eligible? And can you just talk a little bit about what they are for specifically?
Sure. So the federal requirements are you have to be within a certain distance of an identified alternative fuel corridor. And so each state went through a process to identify their alternative fuel corridors. In Minnesota, we chose the interstate system, so I-35, I-94, and then we later added I-90. So the entire interstate system is kind of what we're considering to be phase 1. And then you have to be within a certain number of miles of that facility. I can't remember if it's a half mile or.
It's the original. So the original NEVI funding was a mile off every corridors. With the recent new guidance, the new administration left it a little bit more ambiguous. So we see that future rounds will probably be 2 or 3 miles potentially up to those corridors. If you see our green dots on the map, you can identify where the corridors are above here to pull that up for reference.
Okay, and is it only for fuel stations or is it for any business?
No, it can be for any business. So there is actually a Tesla dealership in Albert Lea. That's one of the locations that was awarded out of those 26. There's a couple of Love's travel stops. So let's see.
I would guess maybe a hotel. Is there
I
hotels?
don't think we have any hotels. They would be eligible, but I think the type of business that Quick Trip has, where you're stopping for 20 minutes, you're using the restroom, you're buying a snack or something like that, is probably the most conducive location to these charging stations.
And are they only for level 3 chargers?
Yeah.
Oh,
And
okay.
they have to. So each installation has actually 4 charging ports. So it's like one station, but it's 4.
For 4 cars.
Right.
That's helpful. Amanda, you have a question? And then I do think I saw some other hands over here, so go ahead.
I was just going to make a comment about those grants as well. So Another factor is they have to be available to the public
Okay.
24 hours a day. So at one point, our dealerships looked into them, but obviously, like, because of catalytic converter theft and other issues, we close up at night a lot of the sites, so we don't do it. So I think perhaps maybe things like hotels and other retailers that have, you know, things closed up at some point may not.
That's
want to
helpful.
apply. Yep.
Were there questions over here that I missed? Anybody have any other questions or comments? Margaret?
Thanks. Margaret Donahoe with the Transportation Alliance. I'm just curious because I'm also not an EV driver, but when somebody does go to Quick Trip and fill up, like what's the average cost to the consumer? And in Wisconsin at 3 cents a kilowatt hour, what are people paying, the average person paying per trip, you know, to charge?
Yes, so right now, our average, I guess, our retail rate for electricity that you would, similar to gas, is, it was 40, we range from 45 cents to 59 cents. And a lot of that's utility territory dependent. So again, if we're in Excel versus a co-op versus a municipal, again, that's kind of how right now we're at a high level dictating our pricing, our retail rate. For example, my Tesla's a 75 kilowatt hour battery. If I were to go to 100% at 45 cents, you're paying right around that $35 for right around 315 miles of range. So right now it's pretty much aligned. If you fill your 10 gallon or 12 gallon tank of gas at 30 miles per gallon, you're pretty much going the same distance as a 10 or 12 gallon tank at $3 a gallon. Because what Minnesota, I don't look at gas prices anymore. Probably bad because I work with Quick Trip.
Oh, you poor guy. It's about,
Let's take that off the record probably, but
it's about $3 a gallon,
Yeah.
plus or minus.
so again, for us, trying to make that competitive appearance, for us, it's DC fast charging is not the low cost option. That's not why people buy EVs. People buy EVs for other reasons. We just want to be able to provide that access to a reliable fast charger when they're in need of one. If you get back home to your kid's soccer game after a long trip of travel and it's Sunday at 6 p.m. and you're at 5%, your level 2 charger at home won't be able to help you in that situation, and your kid's going to miss a soccer game. For us, if there's one charger in that community and you know that it's at that Quick Trip store, hey, I can stop there for 5 minutes. We can also grab dinner before the soccer game. I can make it there and back and have no worries at all. So again, I think some of that redundancy and that resiliency is a piece of this pie that we really want to try to identify, and ultimately the communities that we serve. So
And how much are they paying at 3 cents a kilowatt hour?
so
Well, that's the tax, the 3 cents, yeah.
so 3 cents at 75 kilowatt hours, whatever that 20 or $2.30.
Dollars. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Sorry.
Thanks. John?
Excuse me, Madam Chair, I live in a mixed household where my spouse has an EV. But for the consumer facing part of going to Quick Trip, what does the receipt look like? I mean, do you get a receipt that itemizes kilowatt hours?
Correct.
And then you had mentioned, is the excise tax also itemized on that receipt?
Not at this time. Right now, we just have basically a clause that states all costs are included, just like you would see at the retail fuel dispenser rate. And that's where we see the path going forward of, you won't see excise tax at 5 cents times this. It'll just be that embedded cost like you see in liquid fueling is our intent right now, and hope that there's no major changes that would inhibit us from doing that, but just making sure that's recognized on there. So
Madam Chair, and then if you'd said the cost per kilowatt is dictated by the utility rate?
A lot of times, yes.
Okay, so it can be different one region of the state, or it's going to be different in Wisconsin than Minnesota?
Yeah, so it's generally regional by state. I mean, again, for example, a lot of the co-ops offer a kilowatt hour only rate tariff versus Xcel Energy has a demand charge component. So we're gonna have to meet a minimum threshold in Xcel territory to hit enough revenue to offset that bill just because of the demand charges. And we can have a sidebar conversation if anybody's interested in learning about those. But in the co-op, I know, hey, my cost is 15 cents plus my meter fee. I know that I want to make 20% margin or 5% margin. I think DOT is on the NEVI grants, it's 15% that we're allowed to make up to. And so, again, I know that plus that plus that, great. We can now come with a competitive price. And then once more chargers get in, we can then say, I want to be 1 cent less. Again, we want to build a competitive marketplace at some point here. Again, it doesn't exist today, but we need to also identify that there might be some bad folks out there that just want to price gouge. And we do see that in EV industry today of people are billing $1.50 a kilowatt hour, or it's $35 immediately when you first plug in at some areas. Again, that's not what we support. That's not what we want to do for our consumers or our guests. But again, it's really dictated by, and so that's a whole other sidebar that I deal with in my job, is just working directly with the utility companies to make sure that we're all involved with each other and understand this dynamics of, we're not buying fuel from a terminal, we're now buying fuel from a regulated utility company, which has different rules than the terminal. So.
Oh, really helpful. Okay, I know I have 2 questions. John, follow up, and then we'll go to Bentley, and then we'll go to John.
The final question is there any charge to the consumer beyond the kilowatt and the excise fee?
Unless we have to pay the sales tax.
Okay. Thank you.
Bentley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And actually, just on that last point that I just wanted to clarify, and I appreciate you kind of spending a little bit of time on that kind of concept of double, maybe triple taxation. But so just to clarify, I mean, in Minnesota, once you get chargers set up here, which I understand you don't have any yet, but they're coming, presuming you were able with market rates to charge the same, 45 to 59 cent average, it will be more expensive to charge in Minnesota than Wisconsin, correct? Because ours is 5 cents versus 3 cents, and we have the sales tax on top of it.
Correct.
And that
It depends on what the kilowatt cost.
right. I said assuming that. I mean,
Oh, I'm
yeah,
sorry, I didn't
assuming
hear that part.
that's kind of kept constant.
If you just take your foundational costs, generally speaking, it would be more expensive you can make that general assumption that it'll cost more in Minnesota than it is in Wisconsin and Iowa right now.
And I think we learned in earlier presentations, Madam Chair, that 5 cents were the highest.
We're the highest.
Yeah.
Mhm. John?
Madam Chair, John Houselad, Minnesota Trucking. With apps and visibility and connectivity, we can do amazing things. Are we at a point where a consumer can determine whether a specific pump electric charger has capacity and availability? Meaning, well, there's only 4, and what are my odds that I'm going to get one of those 4 when I really need it? So are we to that point where we can say, yeah, of the 4 slots, one's open right now?
In short, yes. We have a mobile app that does show availability of all of our stations that we're bringing online. Google, Apple, a lot of folks are starting to actually integrate it into their mapping to where you can actually live feed to show, hey, 3 out of 4 available, 4 out of 4 available, 0 out of 4 available. Tesla has that built into their user interface. But again, them being very proprietary still, for us to get on their applications is more challenging and less beneficial, or not. It'd be very beneficial for us to get on a Tesla because they have 80% of the cars on the road, right? But to get to that phase is a very big challenge. So we're just focused on the Google Maps, trying to get on the Chevys, the Fords, those types of integrations. So, but yes, it does exist today, and a lot of people rely on those to determine, because there are charging deserts, how many chargers are available, and do I need to stop here because 300 miles away when I will want to charge again and there's no other option to charge again. Again, this is the importance of the NEVI funding of every 50 miles really gives that consumer the choice a little bit better to say, hey, I want to stop here versus there. Or again, I can just pull off because I have to go to the bathroom. I'm going to plug in for 5 minutes just to get me a little bit further on my next leg, right? So.
Any follow-up? That's a good point. For those of us that were at the Transportation Alliance presentation, we learned about charger anxiety as well, that, to build in some kind of reliability or certainty that as when you pull up, you're going to be able to charge. That's important. I had another question, but I forgot what it was. Anyway, any other questions? Go ahead, Jeremy.
Jeremy Neek, Minnesota Department of Revenue. I just heard recently that there might be a fee if you stay plugged in after your car is charged for an extended period of time. Is that a real thing?
So congestion fees or Yeah, basically, Electrify America, I believe Tesla's starting this now as well, but basically you'll get billed a flat fee if your car is plugged in either after you're done charging or a lot of these things. Right now, per the NEVI rule and the infrastructure rule, which again, as far as the consumer goes, I think that's more fair. But we can actually change the price during that charge session. So charge session is defined for the amount of time that that car is plugged in, whether they're consuming electricity or not. And so from when they moment to plug in, it might take them 30, 45 seconds to start the charge session, process payment. Maybe their session stops for whatever reason at 50%. If that car is still plugged in, I formally can't change the price until that car is unplugged. Again, I think that's an industry thing on the the EV charging industry side of things, because of lack of charging and encouraging people to move on. Again, for us, we don't foresee that being an issue because people know what they want. They can get a fast charge in that 15, 20 minutes and they're going to be on their way. And once chargers are every 50 miles, I mean, I can't imagine if you walked inside and you still had the gas nozzle in your car and we're going to slap a $20 fee because you spent too much time in our store, right? Doesn't make a lot of sense for me personally. But again, maybe we're just still early in our adoption that we can't, maybe that is going to be the future, but I hope not from our perspective of we still want to be competitive and fair to that consumer.
So for those of us that aren't EV drivers, there's Tesla only chargers and then there's universal chargers, or can you explain that just briefly, how chargers might work for different EVs?
Yeah, so basically you have two different types of charging protocols this is the easiest way that I've been able to explain it to people. So Tesla speaks one language, every other vehicle speaks the other language. Tesla's before 2020 speaks the one language. Tesla's newer than 2020 speak all languages, both. Now Chevys, Fords, everybody else only speaks the one language. So there's certain Tesla chargers that those Chevy Fords can't charge at. There's some Tesla chargers that they can charge at with an adapter. So to understand that as a consumer versus just, again, so we're seeing issues of actually Tesla owners coming to our stores that have a 2016 Tesla and it's not compatible because, well, I see this, it's the same connector. Why can't I use this? Well, it's because their software doesn't accept it and that we can't make that handshake for a safe charging session.
So Quick Trip can charge Teslas that were built after 2020.
Unless they pay Tesla $250, don't quote me on that, for an upgrade of their charging system.
Otherwise they have to go to a Tesla charger.
Correct.
Okay. There's a lot to learn about this.
That was a can of worms, I'm sorry, but
That's okay. Margaret, you have another question?
Actually, more of a comment, but I just wanted to kind of bring it back to the issue that was brought up with the Virginia presentation, that if we're trying to make up for lost revenue, you know, when an out-of-state driver pulls up and fills up with gas, they're paying like $4.70 probably in fuel tax.
$4.70.
At 5 cents a kilowatt hour, that same person is going to pay about $3
Okay.
in EV fees. So we're still not really making up that gap. So 5 cents is not that unreasonable of an amount.
So given our relationship and what I know you stand for, you're saying that that the least we can do is charge the not the least, but you think it's reasonable to charge the fee, even though, to your point and to much of the other data we've received currently, getting the kilowatt hour tax is not a huge inflow. It's not at this point. And so Margaret, if I could speak for you, is that your point? I do think it's important, as we remember, that today's situation is not 15 years from now's situation. So I am in favor of figuring out something, and that's why we value everybody's input, to be sure. So thank you. I think I saw another hand up. All right. No? Okay. Well, we have 15 minutes left. We probably won't take it, but Adam, I just want to thank you. And I'm just going to warn you, you seem pretty knowledgeable about this, so I'm probably going to be calling you to ask you some questions.
Danny has my contact
Yeah.
information. If anybody call me, whatever, happy to have conversations with anybody here. So
I think your presentation was really helpful for me specifically to understand the implementation of this and the ramifications for users, for drivers, for the expansion of our network. I think reasonably we are going to rely on Quick Trip and Circle K and Speedway and all the gas stations because that's where we get our fuel, right? So for somebody, I know as a woman, for me to, if I'm driving and for me to choose between going to a lighted gas station where I can go inside and get coffee and go to the bathroom versus going to a wayside stop in the middle of I don't even go there now to go to the bathroom. I go to a gas station to use a restroom. So I think it's really important that we include our providers in this conversation just to be responsible as we create the network. So I really appreciate your time. Thank you. In summary, this is the last agenda item, just discussion of our next steps. Our next meeting is on Monday, December 1st, and we're going to meet in the afternoon from 1 to 3. And what I want us to do at that meeting, we are going to have some more presentations, and line 1 is my invitation for you to continue to let us know if there is somebody who might provide some helpful insight. So Representative Elkins on the way out told me he's going to get somebody from Utah. I already mentioned I'm going to get somebody also from Utah, this person who's doing research on mobile charging, which I think is important, but I am open to hearing others and others' perspectives. So let us know about that. But then we also will take some time to reflect on what I hope to get from you between now and December 1st on a soon-to-be posted Google Doc. It's not there yet, and we'll send out the link along with some additional insight and criteria and what we're looking for. But I really want us to start collecting feedback now, much along the lines of what Anjali said earlier about their perspective. Margaret, I know you have much to say about revenue and maintenance fees. We've heard really good stuff from MnDOT on our gap in transportation funding. Department of Revenue has been great in providing us insight into implementation. And the last few meetings we've had, I have found to be really good. A really good use of my time, and I hope yours. But as we look at all the different input variables here, it is a complex issue. I also want to just draw attention to the fact that Danny Gillis has set up most of these speakers with your help, but you've done a really good job. So thanks for that. So remember that our assigned purpose is to really not only provide a comprehensive analysis of where we are, so much to what our speaker from Virginia talked about, but really develop a roadmap with both policy and funding recommendations. I very much expect that whatever recommendations we provide will still be up for conversation and discussion in both the House and the Senate as we continue to, for sure, get feedback and input from our stakeholders. But our job is to provide recommendations, and I'm just going to say, it's not going to be by vote. Like, do we all approve of this recommendation? I think that we are well served and doing our job better if we provide some recommendations that might be controversial, that might not be agreed to by everyone. But I think the strength I bring as a teacher and a facilitator is we will kind of flesh those out much like we did today. I really want people to feel like you are in your right as a working group member to say, well, we don't really like that, or we do like that, or can I push back like you two did a little bit? So let's make sure that between now and the 1st, we get insight from you, whether it's in the form of charts or spreadsheets or policy papers or resources, whatever it is. We're going to create this working document, and it will be public Plus, it will be for all of you, not only public for you, but for anybody else who wants to access it. So I know we have really great support from our agencies, and I appreciate that. Eric, thank you for your feedback today, and for sure Jeremy, but also Brett and others for just what you bring to the table. The implementation is going to be challenging, and I feel really glad that we have some brave stakeholders that have gone before us, so we can learn from them and decide if we want to take their ideas or improve. What I really want you to think about, though, is the future and a little bit bigger than where we are now. So again, on the first, we're going to hear from this person in Utah talking about the reality of mobile charging. I'd love it if, John, maybe you could give us some information on how how trucks might be moving to electric or not. Again, maybe not personally, but you might be able to connect us to the trucking industry and really how we might address that practically. There's so much I don't know that I don't even know what questions to ask, but think big about really how the recommendations that we provide might positively or negatively impact the growth of electric vehicles. And I think that's a reasonable expectation that some of what we're going to propose is going to be negative and some will be positive. We try to be mostly positive, but we want to hear from the stakeholders on what's the reality of what's going to happen. So in addition to that, I'd ask for you to continue to give us additional topics or references. Again, if there's things that I can just send out for you to read or to rely on, I think that's going to be really helpful. So the proposals that we have are probably going to fit into the buckets, the charging and tax on the kilowatt hours, the license tabs that we talked about, the surcharge, how we might also be looking at innovative ways to bring in funding. I think for me, the ultimate goal is continue to provide a long-term sustainable funding source for our roads, because yes, we're going to be building new roads. Yes, we have other funding sources, but really for maintenance and continued mobility, I think this is a really important thing. So that was not written, it was all off the cuff, so it was a little bit clunky. I know lots of you are my friends, so I know you're going to just be okay with that. We have a few more minutes. Does anybody else have something they want to offer up? Okay, remember, I'm a teacher, so if I don't hear from you, I might be calling you. I see Anjali wants to say something.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was actually curious. I know John from the Trucking Association has made some comments about sort of fees on trucks, but I actually don't understand how the commercial side interplays with the roadway funding. Could we do a presentation? I think we focus a lot on consumers and how they drive. I'd be curious to know how commercial vehicles contribute to the roadway funding as well.
Anjali, that's great. I was just on a ride in an 18-wheeler, and they mentioned in the car, I never knew this, that somebody distributes appropriately the gas tax to states as they drive through different states. Who knew? Am I the only one that didn't know that? Okay, I am. So what? I'm dumb. But as we were driving, I was thinking, well, there's got to be a way to do that with electric too. So Anjali, yes. And you were supposed to raise your hand when I said, am I the only one? Because it sounds, okay, good. So the two of us together, and maybe Emily too, she was out of the room. So anyway, that was revelatory for me. So yes, we'll work together to get an understanding of how the trucking industry is already distributing gas tax proceeds across different states, which I found to be very interesting. Anybody else? Bentley.
Can I thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to clarify on kind of your ask for the 1st. So are you hoping to get kind of formal comment from all of us by the 1st in kind of a written form?
Well, I would say not formal, informal, formal if you want, but we want to start collecting ideas by the 1st. And if you don't get it done by the 1st, I am going to call you. Just kidding. Not really. But you certainly don't have to have it done by the 1st. But we are going to be starting, I think that's a responsible kind of process. If there's stuff that comes in by the 1st, it might be a topic of conversation at our December 1st meeting. So Danny, did you have something you wanted to say?
I was just going to mention, we'll send an email with further
Okay.
instruction.
Great.
Yeah.
Hoping to bucket things in terms of, we definitely have folks that want to give feedback on the public charging tax as it's been passed. We have folks that would like a different approach to taxation. And so I think you can give feedback in multiple different buckets that'll be provided, and we can discuss all those different areas.
Great. Thank you. That'd be helpful.
Yeah, and don't be nervous, it won't be graded. Or will it? No, I'm just kidding. We just want to make sure that people give feedback. So, and the December 1st date is just arbitrary as we approach that meeting and something comes up that's interesting to us, we might ask you to, can you clarify this for 5 minutes and we'll put you on the agenda or whatever it is. I just don't want to wait till the last minute so that we're kind of rushing or somebody feels like their ideas weren't fleshed out. So John, you have feedback?
Yeah, well, just a question beyond December 1st. I know we've got that meeting on schedule. What is sort of we're going to land this plane at some point. What's the drop dead date and what's early January look like? Do we have any sense of that just to be sure we're available?
Danny, go ahead.
I believe our drop dead date is essentially the start of the legislative session. And so we have 2 meetings scheduled in December. I'd anticipate at least one more in January, but wrapping up prior to the start of the legislative session.
Do we have a eyesight on the January date yet?
Not at this time.
And what's our 2 December dates? We have the 1st and then do we have the other one scheduled?
I believe it's December 15th, and that's
15th.
been posted and sent out to members as well.
Yeah, they're on the working group. If you haven't been following, we do have that website. It's easy to find. Just Google EV Working Group Minnesota and you'll find it. All of the minutes and presentations that we've received to date are located there. As I'm talking to other people across the nation, I'm forwarding that link to them because it's really helpful to get a context of what we talked about so far. So I guess just again, to clarify a little bit on Bentley's question, if somebody presents something, I'm going to be looking at this and reading through. I do think it's reasonable for us to grab that and say, Margaret, this is me talking to Margaret privately or in a meeting with Danny saying, could you talk a little bit more about this idea here and what's informing that, or what do you know about it? And then Margaret and I have a little feedback, and then we put her on the agenda for the 15th if she so is willing. Again, I think that the other benefit of us doing it in a public forum like that is, you know, John might see something and be like, well, I don't think that, I don't like that. Or maybe that would negatively impact our community in this way. So I'm going to provide some information that is further fleshing that out. I don't want to say contrary, but you know, I think this is an opportunity for us to really see, we have so many stakeholders. I really like this group because even though we have lots of stakeholders, we do seem to be kind of feeding off each other and conversing. I'm on another working group. We have so many stakeholders. I have much less confidence that that working group will be as successful as ours, just because the working groups are so siloed. Whereas here, I do appreciate this back and forth, and I want to encourage it. So hear me loud and clear. There's not going to be, we're not going to wait to the end to say, bad idea, good idea, good idea, bad idea. I want us to really converse about it. Starting on the 1st, continuing on the 15th, going into January, so that as we come up with our final report, people feel good about it and feel like any of the many facets of that idea have been explored. Notice nothing is like rebutted or whatever. I just really want us to think through those things so that we come forward with something that's doable, workable. And even if it is something that might have a negative impact, we've talked about that so that we bring that information with us. Because again, it's gonna, these ideas and our recommendations are without a question gonna get heard and debated at both the state Senate and the House side. So that's what I really want from you. Thank you. I really appreciate that. So anybody have anything else for the good of the order? Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to clarify my presentation, currently motor fuel excise tax or motor fuel is subject to either sales and use tax or the excise tax, but never both. And then our recommendation is the same for electricity. So it's either if you're buying from a DC charger, you'd pay that, the 5-cent tax. If it's from any other charger, it would still be subject to sales and use tax. Just to clarify.
Yep, understood.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you. And I'm guessing that any of our presenters are willing to answer questions personally. If anybody needs to get in touch with them, you can come to me or to Danny Gillis, and we will facilitate that. Yeah, we've had some really great presentations, so I appreciate that. All right, well, without further ado then, we'll adjourn the meeting and we'll reconvene on December 1st, and everybody have a lovely holiday next week. Thank you. Okay, I have some questions for you. And then I got to run because I actually have a meeting.
Yes.